Imagine waking up one day to discover someone had killed your look-alike, so they could steal your identity. It sounds like something straight out of a crime thriller, but this is a chilling reality. And I'm about to take you through one of the most shocking cases you've never heard of. By the end, you'll see just how twisted human nature can be. But here's the real kicker. You'll also discover how easily your identity can be stolen, and what you must do to protect yourself from the same nightmare. The story begins with a seemingly ordinary woman, Rebecca. Rebecca lived a quiet life in her town, blending into the background. But she harbored a dark, sinister plan. She wasn't content with her life. She craved a fresh start, a chance to escape the baggage she had accumulated over the years. What better way to do that than to become someone else entirely? But there was a problem. She couldn't just disappear without leaving a trace. And that's when she had her twisted revelation. If she found someone who looked exactly like her, she could kill that person and take their identity. It was the perfect crime, or so she thought. Rebecca began her hunt for her twin, combing through social media profiles, public records, and online forums. She was meticulous, knowing that her entire future rested on finding the perfect match. After weeks of searching, she finally found her, a young woman named Samantha, who lived just a few towns away. The resemblance was uncanny. Same hair color, same facial structure, even the same height and build. It was like looking into a mirror. Rebecca tracked Samantha's movements, learning her habits, where she worked, where she lived. She studied every detail until she felt like she knew her inside out. But she didn't stop there. Rebecca reached out to Samantha, pretending to be a long-lost friend. She built trust, knowing full well she was preparing for the ultimate betrayal. You may be thinking, how could someone go this far? What would drive someone to such desperation? The answer lies deeper in Rebecca's psyche, rooted in a desperate desire for control, to escape her past mistakes. It was easier to kill someone and take their identity than to fix the mess she had made of her own life. That's where the real terror lies. The terrifying lengths people will go to avoid taking responsibility. Here's where the story takes an even darker turn. One fateful evening, Rebecca invited Samantha over to her apartment. Under the guise of friendship, they spent hours together. Samantha had no idea that this would be the last night of her life. Rebecca had everything planned out. She laced Samantha's drink with a sedative. And when Samantha was unconscious, Rebecca carried out her horrifying plan. She took a knife, ending Samantha's life in cold blood. But here's the chilling part: she didn't just stop at murder. Rebecca mutilated the body, distorting Samantha's face beyond recognition, hoping that when authorities found the body, they would think it was her, Rebecca. It was a grisly, calculated act, designed to throw off the police and make everyone believe that Rebecca had died, leaving Samantha free to slip into a new life. As gruesome as this is, it's a perfect reminder of how dangerous manipulation can be, how it creeps in slowly until it's too late to see the consequences. You might think, I'd never fall for something like that. But consider this. Could you really spot a wolf in sheep's clothing before it was too late? But this case doesn't end with a clean getaway. Rebecca wasn't as clever as she thought. The body was discovered the next morning by a neighbor who had heard strange noises the night before. Police were called to the scene, and initially, everything seemed to go according to Rebecca's plan. Investigators assumed the body was Rebecca's due to the distorted face and the matching physical traits. For weeks, Rebecca lived as Samantha, using her credit cards, staying in her apartment, and even communicating with Samantha's friends and family online, pretending to be her. She thought she had pulled off the perfect crime. But here's where everything unravels. The police, though initially fooled, didn't stop investigating. Forensic evidence began to pile up. DNA traces from under Samantha's fingernails suggested she had fought back in her last moments. This was the first crack in Rebecca's carefully crafted story. It wasn't long before investigators ran DNA tests on the body, and that's when the truth came out. The body wasn't Rebecca's. It was Samantha's. Imagine Rebecca's horror when she learned the police were closing in on her. She had committed the ultimate betrayal, and now the walls were closing in. But she didn't stop running. Even after the police identified her, Rebecca fled the state, trying to escape the law once again. But this time, she couldn't hide behind someone else's identity. Her name was plastered on every news channel, her face on every wanted poster. What Rebecca didn't anticipate was the power of modern technology. The digital footprint she left behind was her undoing. Credit card transactions, social media posts, and security cameras traced her every move. She thought she could erase herself, but in today's world, erasing your digital identity is nearly impossible. But here's the part that's most disturbing and a lesson for us all. Rebecca thought she had found a foolproof way to fake her death and steal a new life. But in reality, her digital breadcrumbs led authorities right to her. And if someone as cunning and methodical as Rebecca could be caught, what does that say about the rest of us? How vulnerable are we to having our identities stolen, manipulated, or erased? You see, this case isn't just about one deranged woman trying to start a new life. It's a mirror into the dark underbelly of identity theft, manipulation, and human desperation. In today's digital world, anyone could become a target. The way Rebecca exploited technology, social media, and personal information to carry out her crime is a chilling reminder of how exposed we all are. But there's something even more important here. This case reveals the consequences of running from your past. Rebecca thought she could erase her mistakes by becoming someone else. In the end, she found that no matter how hard you run, the truth always catches up to you. And that's the message I want you to take from this story. The problem isn't just identity theft, it's the lengths people will go to avoid accountability. And that's what makes this case so terrifying. Rebecca didn't just steal a life. She tried to erase her own, thinking it would free her from her past. But no one can run forever. Now, you might be wondering, how can you protect yourself from something like this? How can you ensure your identity is safe in this digital age, where someone like Rebecca can stalk you, study your every move, and steal your life in an instant? Here's where the solution comes in. It starts with protecting your information, online and offline. Don't leave your personal details exposed on social media. Monitor your credit reports and online accounts. And if you ever suspect someone might be watching, act fast. Because while Rebecca was caught, there are still countless others out there looking for their next target. And here's the promise. I'm going to help you stay one step ahead of them. If you want to learn how to protect your identity and make sure something like this never happens to you, stay with me. There are simple steps you can take today that could save your life tomorrow. Stick around till the end, and I'll give you the tools to secure your identity. But first, what drove Rebecca to such extremes? To fully understand this, we need to dive into her mind, a place where desperation met delusion, where her desire to escape her life overpowered any moral compass she once had. You see, Rebecca didn't start out as a killer. She was, by all accounts, a normal woman with normal struggles. But what separates people like her from the rest of us is a tipping point, a moment where everything snaps, and the mind bends toward dark solutions. For Rebecca, that tipping point came after years of feeling trapped in a cycle of financial debt, broken relationships, and an overwhelming sense of failure. Society often tells us that we can reinvent ourselves, but for Rebecca, reinvention wasn't enough. She didn't want a new version of her old life. She wanted an entirely new life, one without the burden of her past. But what she didn't realize is that the problem wasn't her circumstances. It was her. No matter how many times she tried to run, Rebecca couldn't escape herself. And this brings us to the heart of the story, the real problem we're all facing. The problem, running from your past. We all have moments in life when we want to run from our problems. Maybe it's a mistake we made, a relationship that failed, or a bad decision that haunts us. The temptation to start over, to leave it all behind, can be overwhelming. But here's the harsh truth. You can't run from yourself. No matter how far you go, your past will always catch up with you. And when it does, the consequences are often worse than if you had just faced them head-on in the first place. Rebecca didn't just run from her problems. She tried to erase them completely by erasing someone else. And in doing so, she created a whole new set of problems, far worse than the ones she had originally faced. It's a lesson for all of us. You can't outrun who you are. Now, let me ask you something. What are you running from? What's that one thing in your life that you wish you could erase? Because here's the truth. Until you face it, it will continue to chase you. It will continue to haunt you, no matter how fast or how far you run. Just like Rebecca, your problems will eventually catch up to you. But here's the good news. The solution, confronting your past. The way out isn't through running, it's through confronting. Confronting your mistakes, your failures, and the parts of yourself that you'd rather leave behind. It's not easy, but it's the only way to truly move forward. You see, Rebecca thought that by becoming someone else, she could escape her past. But in reality, the only way she could have found peace was by facing it, owning up to her mistakes, and starting over the right way. Not by stealing someone else's life, but by rebuilding her own. And that's where I want to take you next, because confronting your past doesn't have to be a nightmare. It's the first step toward true freedom, the kind of freedom Rebecca will never know because she chose the wrong path. I want you to think about the problems you've been avoiding, the things you've been running from. And now, imagine what would happen if you stopped running and started confronting them. What would change in your life? How much lighter would you feel, knowing that you no longer had to hide from your past? Here's my promise to you. Stick with me, and I'll show you how to do it. Together, we're going to uncover the steps you need to take to face your past and move forward with strength and clarity. Whether it's a mistake you made, a fear you've been avoiding, or a challenge you think you can't overcome, there is a way out, and it's not through running. But before we get into the steps you can take, I want to wrap up Rebecca's story, because it's here that the final lesson lies. After weeks on the run, Rebecca's time was up. The police caught up with her in a small town, hiding under a false identity. But even in the face of capture, she couldn't admit to what she had done. She still tried to deny it, still tried to convince herself and the world that she was someone else. But the evidence was overwhelming, and in the end, she was forced to confront the truth that she could never escape. Rebecca was sentenced to life in prison, but her story is more than just a cautionary tale about crime. It's a reflection of the choices we all face in life, to run or to confront, to hide or to face the truth. The path you choose will determine the life you live. And the consequences, as Rebecca's case shows, can be devastating if you make the wrong choice. But here's the thing, you don't have to make that mistake. You can choose the path of confronting your challenges, no matter how hard it might seem. You can choose to stop running, to face the truth, and to build a life that isn't based on fear, but on courage. And that's what I want to help you do today. So, what's the next step? Now that you know Rebecca's story, it's time to take action in your own life. If you've been running from something, whether it's a mistake, a bad decision, or a fear that's holding you back, it's time to face it. And I'm here to help you. Here's what I want you to do right now. Hit the subscribe button, because in the next video, I'm going to share with you the exact steps you need to take to confront your past and reclaim your future. I'll show you how to stop running, how to face the fears and mistakes that have been holding you back, and how to build a life that you're proud of without having to steal someone else's. And if you're ready to take that step, leave a comment below with one thing you've been running from. Don't worry, you don't have to go into detail, but acknowledging it is the first step toward facing it. Let's take this journey together. Because here's the truth. Running only leads to more problems. But when you confront your past, you gain the power to shape your future. Rebecca lost that chance, but you don't have to. Remember, your identity is more than just your name. It's who you are, and the choices you make define that. Choose to face your challenges head on, and you'll come out stronger on the other side. I'll see you in the next video.